The 4 knights. This is a fantastic symmetrical opening, great for all skill ranges, and perfect for people who take the opening principle knights before horses far too seriously. We have the E4, E5, and then the horses come out to the F3, F6, C3, and as Peregrine Took famously once said, we've had third horsey, what about fourth, out to the C6 there. Now I know it annoys some people that I call them horsies. Just for you, I am going to refer to this opening as the 4 horsey men of the apocalypse. So we have a few ways that this can play out. Now, normally what you are going to see is either the Italian variation with the bishop out to the C4, the Spanish with it out to the B5, or you'll probably see something like the Scotch variation with the pawn smashing up to the D4. We'll have a little look at all 3 of these since these are by far the most popular, and then from there we'll have a little look at some very real games and some traps that people have fallen into. So let's get into it. Now, there's a couple of things that black can do in this position. We'll start with the most common one, which is the bishop out to the C5. Keeping the symmetry on the board, and you can probably imagine what we're going to do here. You know, like, we get castled off, they get castled off, we push forward the D3, opening up the bishop for this pin. However, they normally come down with the H6 to try and block it. All pretty straightforward stuff. Now, I am never a fan of their dark square bishop in this position, because they're always targeting this weak F2 pawn here. You know, always looking at some kind of shenanigans like this, and normally I'm going to be wanting my rook onto the E1, you know, later on when I have plans of something like the C3 and then the D4, but then this comes down and it's a whole thing. So I just like trying to get it off the board. So swinging around the horsey to the A4, we attack the bishop, he drops back, and then we just get rid of it. And normally you're going to see him capture back towards the centre and opening up his rook there. And from here, just something like bringing across the rook onto the E1. And later on, I'm going to have plans of something like this. Maybe not straight away. I'll probably push this up fairly early. So, you know, after something like the D6 opening up their bishop, I'm not overly concerned about this pin for now. I'd be more concerned if the horsey was able to jump there. You know, then we have the 2 kind of attacking like so. So push forwards the C3. That gives us the option of a pawn break later on in the game, but also it's stopping the horsey from jumping down like so. Now, some things that you'll see here is him either coming out and just offering up the bishop trade, and I would just go ahead and take it. And from here, we now have a nice pawn to target, and the king side is all weakened off there. You may instead see him swing around with a horsey to try and take your bishop, not wanting us commanding the diagonal. I think keeping the diagonal is more important than moving the piece a few times here, so I would try to keep it on the board, you know, bring the bishop to here, and then if he pushes down the C6, drop it back. Most common move is this, the B5 coming down. Don't drop it to here, just drop it back to the C2, and we'll have plans of smashing forwards this, and then just trying to relocate the bishop to the B3 along this diagonal. Now, if he does something silly, like, you know, goes for the pin right now, then congratulations, you've just gone won a horsey. He has nowhere to jump to. If instead he comes down with a C5, which is the better move, from here I would just be doing something like push forwards the H3, just stopping this coming across. And later on, once again, we are going to have plans of smashing forwards this. If he takes, so let's just say, I don't know, he moves the queen to the C7 like so, we could go for either something like the D4 pawn break here, we could go for the pawn break here. We have quite a few choices, basically, but this game is going to be determined by a lot of pawn breaks, as you can tell. And just bringing it back to here, if the bishop comes down for the pin, I wouldn't worry yourself too much about it. Just start expanding down that queen side there. And then when the queen comes out, something like this, I mean, we could always push forwards the H3, drop the bishop back, and then, I don't know, go for something like either maybe the pin to here, drop the bishop back a little bit if you want. We could start looking at expanding down a bit more this way. Stockfish actually really likes the king to the the h2 there, although it's not probably something that I would probably go for, but like I say, you can see it's a pretty comfortable even position for both sides. Puts it slightly in white's favour, but really I'd be comfortable as black or white in this position. Alright, bringing it all the way back to the start of the Italian variation, there is a very fun line here where black can go ahead and take the pawn, we take back, and then he smashes down with the d5. Now, we do want to try and keep the bishop on the board. I wouldn't be dropping it back like so, because, I mean, look at that analysis bar. Pawn can go ahead and take, and then, what's this horsey going to do? Stockfish actually recommends dropping back to the g1, but then the queen comes out to the g5, and it's so uncomfortable for us. We can't really take the pawn because he takes back, and then even if, we do get castled off to safety, the bishop coming out like so is just absolutely devastating for us. I mean, I wouldn't go ahead and take with the bishop either, because I just feel like it gives black all the initiative, like, we can drop the horsey back attacking the queen, but then queen goes to the d6 there, we get castled off, and then obviously we have the pin that comes down, and even though we can try and keep attacking the queen, queen's going to drop to here, so we have to drop back, and, like, goes back to there, just say we try pushing forwards the d3 there to open this up, but then he gets castled off to the queen side, and like I say, I just feel like black has all the initiative here, and it's just not great for us. So instead, just a nice and much more pleasant and simple move would be drop back the bishop to the d3. He takes, we take back, and how much more simple is this position? Look at how much more room to breathe we have. So you'll see the bishop come out to the d6 there, and we can, just get castled off. They get castled off, and then we open up the bishop there, and then he comes down for the pin. Which is fine, I guess, but I prefer being a bit more aggressive with it, Smash forwards the d4 there. He takes. Now, I wouldn't take back just yet. I would trade off your bishop for the horsey, double up as pawns there, giving us some nice targets for later on, and then come up with the queen like so, capturing the pawn. Now, the queen's a lot more active as we're going into the mid-game. He gets castled off, and then we could just like bring across our bishop to something like here. I wouldn't castle off straight away, like I say, finish off your minor development. Then as he comes across with the rook there, we have a choice. We could get castled off either way. If you're feeling a bit safe, get castled off to the king side. If you're feeling a bit more spicy, get castled off to the queen side, and then we are just trying to chuck the pawns down there and just be as aggressive as possible. Alright, the Spanish variation. Instead of coming to the c4, we come to the b5 there. And there's a couple of ways that this can play out. You may just see the horsey jump down, trying to attack us like that, and kind of attacking this. What I would do is, horsey goes ahead and takes, pawn takes, just leave horsey there, push forward the pawn like so, attacking, and if he takes, we take back, and then after the queen comes out, we can just quite happily go ahead and capture back with the d-pawn there. And this is a very even position for us. And from here, you'll probably see something like this come out, the bishop come out to the c5 there, and you can see both of these are going for this vulnerable kind of f2. And we have a choice. We can either get castle off and then they get castle off, or we could go across with the queen going for the check and then offer up the queen trade like so, which would be like this. And then once again, we get castled off, they get castled off. From here, it's fairly straightforward, like we'll be getting the bishop out, we're getting the rooks onto the open files, and we will be just pushing forwards with the pawns as best as we can there. However, bringing it all the way back to where were we? Here, most common move by far you're going to see is this, the pawn coming down to the a6. From here, I would just quite happily offer up the bishop. Normally, you want to keep it on the board. However, for this, I think it works better when we go ahead and do that. Now, you'll see them capture back like so, opening up their bishop and opening up their queen a little bit there. And from here, we can just jump up and take that pawn like so. Now, this works out quite a fun line. So the horsey comes down, takes the pawn. we take the horsey, then the queen comes down to the d4, like so, and we're left in this position. Now, we can quite happily just leave the horses there and get castled off, and we'll see which way that the queen takes. If they take on, just say, the e4, that is a huge mistake because we have the fantastic move, rook to the e1. Clearly the queen can't take this now, and just say the queen just comes to, I don't know, somewhere like the f5. Horsey can jump up to here, now putting the king in discovered check, and we are now threatening to take this. So let's just say they block with a bishop, then congratulations, you've gone and won yourself a rook. If instead they go and block with this bishop, this is considerably worse. We can leave that rook right there, and we can go ahead and capture this. We still have the threat of the discovered check, and we are now threatening the queen. So the queen drops to something like the g5, and now we go and gobble up that other bishop there. Once again, with the discovered check, it is absolutely disgusting, and it is game over for black. Alright, and let's just say he makes the correct move and goes and takes that horsey on the e5. You can still just bring across the rook like so. I quite like pushing forwards the d4, getting a bit more centre control and attacking the queen there. Clearly he can't take because it is this, and then it is just game over for black there. So the queen has to move out of the way somewhere. Now let's just say they come to somewhere like here to the f5. Well, from here what I would be doing is just hopping back the horsey, attacking the queen, and if they come to somewhere like here, the g4, offering up the queen trade, I would just go ahead and do it. That's absolutely fine. Once we've done that, get your rook across, attacking the king. He then goes ahead and blocks like so. And I just feel like white has a bit more initiative here. We can quite happily come across with, just say, like the bishop out to the f4, attack this pawn here, force the rook to move. Now he's not getting castled off to the queen side, and but this pawn is now protected. And yeah, from here we could go for like the bishop attacking this, and then I know you probably just see him either get castled off to safety, which would be a huge mistake, because bishop can go ahead and take. After the king takes, then we can just go ahead and grab that. Really, I think it's going to be better for him to bring across the rook to here. I mean, he can't obviously block like so, because that's just going to be a discovered check, and we just go ahead and win. So yeah, something like the rook to here. Now black's lost all of their castling opportunities, and it is a very even position, but I think it's a bit more uncomfortable for black there. I think we're in a better position. I mean, alternatively, you could go for something like the h3, and then, you know, this guy comes across to something like the e6 there. But then I'd still be bringing across my bishop to here, trying to attack. Again, he can't push down this pawn, because after takes and then takes, then we just go ahead and win a bishop there. There's a lot of really fun traps here that I really like. So the Scotch Variation, this can get a little bit crazy. This is the pawn coming up to the d4. Now, normally what you are going to see is pawn takes, horsey takes pawn, horsey takes horsey, and then the queen comes across to here, going for that pin. We have a couple of choices from here. We'll have a quick look at the bishop, and we'll have a quick look at the f3 there. So like I say, we'll start with the bishop. If you're wondering why horsey doesn't take, it's because it just leaves us in this absolutely awful position here. So bring across the bishop. Clearly horsey's going to go ahead and take, and we'll get castled off nice and safe. Now, horsey's a little bit vulnerable here to different attacks, but also the queen's going to be very vulnerable to the rook coming across to the e1, and then the horsey jumping out of the way. So just dropping the horsey back gets it in a safer position, kind of reroutes it, and also just protects the queen and the king when they're together like that. So we bring across the rook to the e1, something like d5 to try and kick the horsey out the way, but really you can quite happily just jump across to the g5. Clearly, horsey can't take because of this, so instead, just bringing across the bishop, making room to get castled off to the queen side, and we can just carry on with our attack, bring across the bishop, add in more guns into the battle there. They castle off to the queen side, and then the queen can now come up and take that pawn there. And things can get a little bit spicy here, so just say like the h pawn comes down, and then we go ahead and take. He takes back with the pawn, now attacking both of these. But once we drop the queen out of the way, he can't take that once again because of this rook. So if the queen comes across to like the f6, we can drop across the bishop and then offer up the queen trade like so. and we're left in this fairly comfortable position. Slight advantage to white, but it's pretty comfortable for black. Alright, let's bring it all the way back to where were we? Here. So instead of the bishop, you can just come across and just do something like the f3 there. And this can, once again, we do have to be very aware of this pin, but the f3 is absolutely fine. Now, while the pawn can come down on the d5, it's not the end of the world, because we have a fantastic plan. We can bring across our bishop going for the pin here. Now, if he was to go ahead and just say try and take it, then we can just quite happily hop up the horsey. We are now attacking the queen like so. If he was to just say try and do something like this, well, clearly we're just going to take the queen. That is not an issue. King takes back, and then we capture back, probably with the queen actually, like so, and white is just massively winning. So instead, if he captures back with the pawn, then we have this. Blocks with the bishop, we can just quite happily go ahead and take that rook now. We are 5 points of material ahead. Yes, he's going to take that. 4 points of material ahead. But king to something like the f2 is not an issue. And the queen is still very vulnerable to this pin here. So coming across for something like the check. But again, we just get the bishop out. It's now attacking the queen. We're now protecting the king. White's just in a much better position there. So instead of going ahead and capturing, really he should be doing something like this, bringing across the bishop just to block this. I would just go ahead, do the trade. Clearly he's not going to take back with the bishop because that's just going to be super ugly for them there. You know, that bishop isn't doing anything. It's not active at all. So really capturing back with the pawns probably better there. Get castled off to safety. Yes, he can take, but then the rook to the e1. Now he can't capture back like so. And it's relatively even material there. He gets castled off to the queen side there. And the rook can now go ahead, capture the pawn, threatening the queen. Queen drops down to here, and then we drop back the horsey, once again threatening the queen. Queen comes to here, and we're left in this position. Very even, and to be honest, I kind of favour white's chances here. I feel like the queen's in a bit of a bad spot there, but like I say, it should be absolutely fine for black as well. But yeah, very, very fun, very wild with the Scotch there. Right, so let's have a little look at some very real games with some very real traps. This video has taken longer than expected, so I have now moved on to my night out pre-drink, so excuse me while I drink Woodford Reserve while doing this. So for this one, we have the Spanish variation. This is Jowett in the white and McDonald in the black. So the bishop comes to the b5 there, and then the horsey drops down, as we saw before, to the d4. However, this time, white decides to drop back the bishop to the c4, just trying to take control of this diagonal here. Now, as I've said many times, this f7 and this f2 are always very weak, so the bishop targeting that is always going to be good. Now, black makes the terrible decision straight off the bat to go ahead and capture that pawn. And I can see what he was probably imagining would happen, you know, horsey takes, pawn takes, and then after the horsey takes back, then the d5 comes down like so. The bishop comes up, taken on the f7, and then forcing the king to take. And from here, after horsey goes and captures, offers up an exchange like so, queen is now involved, and this is just brutal for black there. Now really, black should be coming across to the e8 there, just getting a bit out the way, and then, you know, like get the queen out, and then just trying to get him over that way. But instead, he backs himself into the corner, and look at that analysis bar. Things are looking awful, and white can quite happily hop across the horsey, threatening a mate in one. Now, queen can't take, because coming across to the d5 there is a mate in one. So instead, queen comes down to here, offering up the trade. But once again, coming across that d5 there, there's basically nothing that black can do. If they drop to here, clearly that's a mate in one. And if they drop to here, then clearly we just go and get ourselves a nice free queen there. And in this position, black just resigned. Let's have a little look from black's perspective. So from this, we have the 4 horses and then the Spanish variation. Well, the horsey jumps on the d4. This is the Rubinstein variation of the Spanish variation. So many variations. And the horsey drops down, going ahead and capturing the pawn. Well, the queen comes across, now attacking the horsey, and the pawn comes down to the f4. Well, after the horsey takes the bishop, and then the horsey takes back, pawn up to the d6, and here black makes the awful choice of jumping back the horsey to the d3. Look at that analysis bar. Why is this so bad? Well, because of this. Where is that queen going to go? The queen only move really is to go ahead and take, and then black goes ahead and wins the queen. It is game over. And once again, in this position, white just resigned. Alright, here we have a fun one in the Scotch with Oppenheim in the white and in the black. It's NN. I don't know how to pronounce that. I know I've said it wrong. So they go ahead and accept the Scotch variation, and then horsey takes back and the pawn comes down to the d5 there. Well, the bishop comes across and you can see they are now piling on the pressure like so. Well, the queen comes down to the d6, but this isn't a great move because after the pawn goes ahead and takes, now look at all the pressure we are putting onto this. So the horsey decides to go ahead and take, just to relieve a little bit of pressure there, but then after horsey takes and queen takes back, horsey up to the c6 capturing, and black just resigns. And why is this? Well, white now has a 3-point lead in material, and what can black do about it? I mean, they can't go ahead and capture because that's just a free queen. Can't take back because of this pin. He can't just say exchange the queens off like so because we have this discovered attack here. And if he was to try and take back, then he has this. What about if he tries to just say take the bishop? Well, that is a mate in one. Or if he just say comes down for the check, then the king just does something like here, this comes to here, and then really there's not too much that white can do there. Sorry, black can do there. White has a massive lead here. Alright, another one in the Scotch. This is Valenta in the white and Gotts in the black. So it's the Scotch accepted. Horsey goes and takes, and then the pawn comes down to the d5, and you can see every time analysis bar just does not like that d5. It much prefers something more like the bishop coming out to something like here, going for the pin there, but instead, like I say, we have the d5. Well, the bishop goes for the pin, and then once again the queen comes down to the d6. Pawn takes, horsey takes. You can see it's very similar to before, and then the horsey jumps up, capturing on the c6. And then the pawn takes back. Once again, look at that analysis bar, because queen can just jump up, take that horsey, and black resigns. Once again, there is not too much that black can do here. You know, like if the queen goes ahead and takes, then horsey's just going to go ahead and take back, and then can't capture this way because of this. Captures back like so, and then just this fork here. It is just absolutely brutal for black. Now this is a great one for black in the Scotch accepted. We have Barrias in the black and Cavello in the white. So once again, horsey drops down, and then we have the horsey exchange there, and then horsey jumps up to the b4. Just trying to apply a little bit of pressure here for the time being there. Now, after the bishop comes out, just trying to protect the pawn a little bit, queen comes and puts the king in check, and the king moves to the d2. Now, really, something like the f1 probably would have been a little bit better there, but instead he goes for the d2. Well, black pushes forwards the g6, and while it looks a bit of a funny move, white falls right for the trap here of thinking that they have this. But they don't, because this g6 was no accident. While it looks like the plan was just to go for the fianchetto, it also has this. Goes for the check, and white just resigns. And why is that? Well, where can the king go? Absolutely nowhere. What can block this? Nothing. I mean, coming down here is not going to make any difference there. The rook coming down is just going to allow us to just go ahead and capture back either way like so. It is absolutely disgusting, and I can totally understand why white resigned. And that is the 4 horses of the apocalypse. So, I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, leave it a like. Subscribe if you really like it. If there's anything you want to see me cover, let me know below. I will catch you all later.